So we thought that would be very appropriate in this time, because I'm sure if you are like us, there have been ups and downs through this whole COVID experience, where we can get heated up sometimes.
Yeah, before we get into the topic, I'd just like to check in with people and see, where are you now in this moment? If you could choose one word, let's say, to describe your current state of mind, what might that be?
Mhm.
And you can just yell it out if you want, or put it in the chat box. For me, one word I would use is excited, because I am. We get a different group on this call every time, and it's just so fun to see who shows up.
Yeah.
And I know that there'll be lots of positive discussion here, and so I'm excited about that. So my word's excited.
Yeah, mine's happy. I'm happy to be doing something. So yeah, I have other than cooking. So mine's happy. What else? Oh, we have Paula, tired. Oh, okay. I can know why.
Yeah.
She's been working hard.
That would be a common one.
Yeah, good. What else?
I'm feeling very sensitive.
Sensitive. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot that keeps me on edge, with everything that's shifting, from week to week, hour to hour, day to day. It feels like I'm always regaining my balance too.
Yeah.
So I share some of that with you, Angela.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jim.
Yeah, Dave, you're playing into my word. I was going to say confused, but I'm still a hopeful person.
Okay.
So you're confused and hopeful.
Well, yeah, I love what you're saying, Jim, because in this moment, and that was David's question, where are we in this moment? What is the emotional state? For you right now, it's confused, where typically, I would imagine, what you're talking about is you're usually hopeful. Is that what you're describing?
I think that's true. I tend to always be hopeful.
Okay.
I'm not a worrier, so
Okay.
That helps.
Okay. Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Diane?
Today, I feel energized, but I think it's because I just exercised quite a bit.
Okay.
And normally, I would say I would agree with Paula, and I would just be tired.
Okay.
But I walked a couple of miles to my church, and then I practiced my organ for tomorrow's Easter service, and then I walked back home.
Okay.
And one way is downhill and one way is uphill. So I got a lot of good exercise and just slid into my seat right as this meeting started. So.
Yeah. So I love that, because that's what you feel right now. And
yes, right.
If we were to have this meeting at 6:00 tonight, we could each have a different word at that point.
Yes.
So the point is our emotional state can change many times throughout the day or week or whatever. So thank you.
Yes,
How about Carol? What's your word?
Can you hear me? I thought I put it on mute.
No.
We can hear you now. Yep.
Well, I'm feeling productive.
Okay.
I am doing things that I have needed to do for years, and I am deep in photos of my life and our life. Diane and Gordy, your life. And, so it's fun. I'm loving it, and I just hope I can keep accomplishing in these days that we have where we are sheltered in place.
Yeah, the perfect example of doing the most with what you have right in front of you right now. Really using it. Great, thank you. Yeah, Gordy, what's your word?
Well, usually I'm pretty optimistic,
Uh-huh.
but I would have to say I'm restlessly optimistic right now. I'm very restless. I'm optimistic about things, but I'm just restless because it's changing every week.
Yeah, got
Yeah.
it. Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, great. Carolyn?
Up until a little bit ago, I was content, kind of this hurry up and wait, kind of feeling. But now I have to go to the store, and I'm feeling very anxious because
Okay.
I wear a mask. I do not do well with that over my face. And I'm starting to
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
the other day when I had to run to the store for bananas for my parents, I did get some dirty looks, and I literally went in, got 3 stupid bananas, and ran back out. Well, and the dirty looks. Well, today I have to buy a few more things, and I'm seriously stressing over this.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah. Up until a little bit ago, when my mother told me I needed to go to the store,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And Paula, did you have anything else you wanted to say about tired? I see your pictures on Facebook that you're working hard.
Yeah, I think, well, some of the tiredness, I get irritated easily
Oh, okay.
when I get interrupted.
I see. Okay.
I had to make some apologies yesterday for my snappiness at someone who will remain unnamed.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. Well, all of this confusion and tension and shifting information it just puts us all a little on edge, I think.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. Well,
so
and-
you're speaking to that in different ways.
Right, and here's the wonderful thing about emotional states, because we are in and out of them all the time. If at any point we're in one that really does not feel good at all, and we do not like being there, it's gonna go by. It's gonna change, and it's the same thing when we're feeling great. Enjoy it while you have it, because that can change. So the point is, with all that's going on with around us, and there's a lot with COVID happening, our emotional states can be all over the place. And point is to recognize that we are not our emotions. It's something we feel. We are not it. And so today we're going to be talking about how we can manage those times, particularly when we get it up.
Yeah, so not that we're going to spend a lot of time focusing there, but we do want to hear from you a little bit about, what is it that gets heated up for you? What heats you up, or what upsets you? What's going on with this virus for you in terms of what do you get worried about or anxious about? Let's get some of those on the table, and then we'll deal with them.
What heats you up?
I'd say for me, anytime either one of us has the slightest sniffle, we're like freaking out. Is this the big one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a ton of allergies, but Leanne was complaining about not feeling good in the middle of the night and bracing hard and the whole 9 yards. So you start to get a little bit concerned, what's going on with the other person.
So fear. Yeah, sure.
A fear of getting sick or one of our loved ones getting sick.
Right.
Heats us up a little.
Yeah, great one. Thank you.
What else is on your mind that concerns you? Anybody?
What heats you up?
Well, I think most of the time when you're in situations, there's an end you can see. You can see that there's going to be an end coming.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, you wonder what's going to be at the end? What happens? When do we know that this is over?
Right.
And that's kind of a frustration because you hear about all these things going on. Now they're canceling. the Olympics. They canceled Grandma's Marathon up here, which is in June. All the classes for all the universities now are going to be online throughout the summer, and they said there's a possibility it could be in the fall. There's ADs talking about, well, there might not be a football season. And you're taking a look at this, and the frustration of not knowing, and the anxiousness about not knowing, when is the end? When is the end going to be there?
Yeah.
And what's it going to look like?
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Gordy, because it's like, all right, I can deal with what I know, but we're in a place of we don't know. It's
Right.
really a place of limbo, which makes us feel even more vulnerable, doesn't it? Yeah, thank you. Good.
What else throws you off balance regarding this pandemic at the moment?
I think I get heated up when there's confusion in the news. Nobody's supposed to wear a mask unless you're sick. So you see someone with a mask and you think, why are you here? You're sick.
Yeah.
And then now if you go to the grocery store, you're supposed to wear a mask, whether you're sick or not. Okay, so which is it? I'm kind of like a structured person.
Yeah.
And which is it?
Yeah,
I mean,
and the why.
Right.
Why, why was it
Right.
changed? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of well, which is it? People are getting sick, people are getting better, and then now are they immune or are they not immune? And we use their plasma to make some vaccines or help other people, or can't we? And it's all some of it piggybacks onto what Gordy said about not knowing, but
Right.
it seems like what we do know seems to change each day. And then that kind of gets under my skin. I get kind of cranky.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it is.
And there's Gordy smiling.
He can attest to you're telling the truth.
Yes.
I know it is not growing.
Yeah. One of the things that I catch myself getting hooked by is in watching the news and seeing certain points be labored to death. It's like, give me something new, or it's just so repetitive, and I find unhelpful. And it's like, come on, get on with it. Give me something that's going to matter right now, rather than just complaining. That bothers me a lot. Just constant drilling up all of the negativity without a solution. I don't find helpful. So that's for me. Any other things that you notice get yourself tuned up, heated up, maybe extra scared, or
I would say maybe just being so confined. You're so limited with these parameters that I understand. We have to be safe, and I get all that, but the walls close in a little bit. You start a little bit suffocate, and it's like you can't break out or go and do something distracted. You really are forced to sit here and work through whatever is rising up for you, and you don't really get the option to go and say, well, I'm just gonna go walk around TJ Maxx or something, serve candles and distract myself.
Right.
You really have to sit in it and face it, which is great. It's great to be able to face things like that, but once in a while being able to say, okay, I'm going to give myself a breather and get outside of these walls. Even taking a walk, you're still confined a little bit, and you have to be careful, and that it's a little frustrating to feel like chained.
Right. Well, we've lost a lot of our freedom. Basically that we can't just come and go as we please, and it's making me really grateful. There's so many freedoms I just took for granted.
Yes. Yes.
And wow, I've never imagined, so that we're not used to that.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, well, I think I'd like to start addressing some of these concerns if we could together, because it seems like we share a lot of feelings together, and our situation shifts, our state of mind shifts so often, and it's like we've got to be well armored, I guess, or we have a lot of tools in our toolbox to keep the anxiety down. And one of the things that I think Diane mentioned it, and Gordy also, is this thing about confusion. What are we supposed to believe? Because things keep changing all the time. And I wanted to just point us all back to what came up a couple, 3 weeks ago, which were resources that we can trust to get accurate information. And if you look at the chat box, I've added some of them there.
David, excuse me, David, can you share your screen to show that graph? Because I think that is.
Yeah, I will do that. I wanted people to go first, though, to these other sources so that we don't overlook those.
Oh, sure. Okay.
If you haven't used these sources, these are good sources to use for anything you're wondering about from this day forward, hopefully for the rest of your life. If you want to know what's the truth and what's not the truth, you can go to factcheck.org, politifact.com, Snopes.com. Those are fact-checking agencies, and I found them to be pretty balanced. I like it when people are checking information against other information and where it's coming from so that we can find out what's really true. And so we encourage you to use those resources. Also, we encourage you to pay attention to the research and the science, especially people that are grounded in research and science, like Dr. Fauci, for example. I think is pretty trustworthy because he's got decades of experience in dealing with these kinds of viruses. The CDC is a pretty accurate resource, I think. The World Health Organization, BBC, NPR, these are all sources that I think are pretty good ones to get accurate information from. And Kate was asking me to share this chart again, which I will do. And I encourage you, we won't spend a lot of time on this chart, but I encourage you to spend time looking at this later. In fact, if you can take a screenshot of this, make it as big as you can on your screen, and take a screenshot, you'll be able to use this as a reference in the future. And just to orient you to the chart a little bit, again, we're not going to go over it all, but just to orient you a little bit, the center of the chart is mainstream resources. Over here to the left tends to be more liberal views. Over here to the right tends to be more conservative views. Okay, so if you happen to live over here, if you're kind of a leftist person, you might look at the mainstream and think that they're too conservative, just because it's your frame of reference. See, or if you live in the land of conservatism, then you may look at the mainstream media and see them as being too liberal and not trustworthy. So it's a good thing to know where you are personally. Now, I lean a little bit to the left, so I've got to be careful that when I'm evaluating resources, where I'm getting information, like if I get information from MSNBC, for example, I want to be careful about that. They're likely to give very good information, but if you look over to the left here, it says that they're also opinionated. Now, they're fairly opinionated, but they're also very close to having the incomplete story, or being unfair. In other words, they may politicize things a little bit. Now, I'm not attacking them. I'm just giving an example. An example on the other side would be maybe Fox News over here. If you're watching Fox News, you want to be careful that you double check what information you're getting there, because they tend to be on the fringe over here, just like these news sources tend to be on the fringe on the left. So it's just being aware of where are these organizations and information coming from. And so the lower we go on this chart, the more unreliable the information tends to be. And then over here on the key on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there's boxes. There's a red box here, there's an orange box here, there's a yellow box here, there's a green box here, and there's a key over there to indicate what that means. If you're in one of those boxes, what does it mean? For example, if you're in, let's say you're in the green box here, you're going to get pretty straight news from the green box. Not a whole lot of opinion, just straight news. Okay. If you're in the red box down here, that's where we want to be careful about getting unfair interpretations of the news, or even they call it nonsense here, or damaging to the public. We want to be careful about our resources. Where are we getting our information? Mm-hmm. So I don't want to belabor this point. This was created by an attorney who got so frustrated trying to have conversations with people because people had different perspectives based on where they were getting their information. Mm-hmm. So if you know where you're getting your information and you know reliable sources for information, and you understand where other people are getting their information, it helps explain the differences. Why are we getting confused?
Yeah, good. Thank you, David. All right, if everybody get the screenshot of that, and then if you can unshare.
Sure.
Okay, great, thanks. And I thought I heard a chime. Did somebody else join us?
Oh yeah.
Is that Alex?
Alex.
Oh, Alex is here.
Alex.
Hi.
Hi, great to have you. Hello, Helena.
Yes, and Helena's here too. Hooray.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This is, for those of you that don't know, this is David and Carol's daughter and granddaughter. Glad to have you back.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So we wanted to go over that the media piece again because we're very influenced and can get. I know it's a big source of my getting heated up when I'm watching something, particularly repeatedly seeing something. So when we are, to begin with, if we are more mindful about where we're getting our information and how much of the time, that's going to affect us about being able to stay centered. We'd love to also hear from you about what are some things that you practice in your lives that help keep you grounded, that help keep you cool. What do you know works? Like, for instance, I'll just Diane, if you don't mind, I'll use your example of your exercise. You have gone for that long walk. You feel good. So that's a great way to take care of yourself so that you are lined up at your best, right? Good. Yeah. All right. Great.
Sunshine helps.
Yes, it does. Yes, sunshine in Pennsylvania today. So
yeah, and we haven't always had a lot of sunshine in the last few weeks here in Midwestern Minnesota, and I have a light that is just on a table, one of those happy lights or whatever, and if I just use that thing, it helps me.
Yeah.
And but I just got to remember to walk over to it, and and use it, but it gives me a little bit of an energy boost, and
Yeah, good.
and then it seems like I can get through to the next mood that I'm going to be in.
Okay, good, thanks. Yeah, what else let's hear from a couple of people. What works for you? What helps you stay stable?
If I don't eat too much sugar,
Oh,
and I really like sugar, and
yeah.
I really like it. I have to be deliberate and disciplined around it, but then I do feel better emotionally
Oh, good.
for having self-control.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, and I love what you're saying, Carol, because we need to be self-aware about, all right, what gets me? What makes me feel good? What makes me, get pulled, symbolism David and I use a lot in our workshops is when you get pulled out of alignment. What is that? And so when you know it, those things, that's great.
I use the analogy of the slippery slope.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And
Yes, where I go.
up there to go up again. So if you could just stay on top.
Yes, excellent. Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple people brought up the idea, the state of mind that they're in that is dealing with this unknown, that there doesn't seem to be any end to it and information is changing quickly and so on. How do you deal with that? How can we help each other out with that? How do you cope with the unknown?
Trying to stay more present is helpful. I think, wanting to look too far ahead and think of all the possibilities that can go wrong just add to it.
Yeah.
So, trying to ground yourself and just be here now.
Exactly. I love that, Paula. Thank you for that, because what we humans do is we tend to make up stories about the future. We get hooked and we get we're going down that slippery slope that Carol's talking about. And then we can add to it, like, oh, what if this happens? And we can really catastrophize and scare the bejeebers out of ourselves. And, so one of the things we always tell our clients is if you're going to tell yourself a story, make it a good one. Make it a story with a happy ending. That everything's going to work out. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. I trust that I'm going to be able to meet whatever shows up. I've been able to get through every challenge I've ever gone through before. Like we talked about last week in the resilience, reminding yourself about, that you're, when you were strong, things like that. We can influence ourselves by how we are thinking and what the stories we're telling ourselves.
Yeah, you bumped up against one I was going to share there, Kate. That one of the things that comforts me is remembering that my record for getting through difficult situations is currently 100%.
Yes.
It's like I've always recovered. No matter what has happened to me, I've always recovered. Doesn't mean that it was easy. Doesn't mean that there weren't important lessons to learn. Doesn't mean that I wasn't sad or wasn't angry or any of that. But still, when I look back on it, I've got a lot of years to look back on right now.
Yeah.
Look back on it and realize I made it through everything. And so what are the chances that I'm not going to make it through this?
Yeah.
Not very much, because my track record is pretty good. So even though it's hard, even though there will be disappointment, I know a couple people already that have gotten sick, and probably many of you do already too. We're all going to know people who got sick. Some of us are going to know people that die. And yet, we've had other deaths in our life, right? We've had other disappointments, health problems in our past, and we've always gotten through it. So that's kind of what I remember, and it calms me when I think about, well, I don't know what's coming.
Right.
But I do know, hey, I've got a good track record, so.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, David, because it for me, it also reminds me that every challenge I've ever gone through, it has made me stronger.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a cliche about it, but it really, I definitely see the truth of that. I can go back. The first real difficult thing I ever faced in my life was when I lost my first pregnancy. And I didn't think I could live through that. I didn't think I could make it, and I did. And then I lost another one, and then I got through that. And it was, and I've had many things occur in my life since then, and each one has helped strengthen me for the next. And so in a way, I mean, I'm looking at this as like, wow, we're all going to be very strong when we get to the other side of this, and wiser, for the rest of our lives. Like, thank you, COVID, because you're making me stronger.
Yeah.
That, I mean,
There's a caveat I want to add to that, Kate, and that is it's not necessarily guaranteed that we'll be stronger. It depends on how we approach it or what's our attitude towards it. If we use it to build up resentments or to complain or to remind ourselves how bad life is or whatever, how we use the struggles and the challenges
that is true.
makes a difference. We'll either use it to make ourselves continue to feel bad, or we'll use it to grow and learn and be stronger for the future.
Yeah, that is true. And I was speaking of what my experience was, and that's true. It may not be the same for everybody when they have a challenge. They can complain about it the rest of their lives and be weakened by it. And I'd love to highlight that it is, what is your intention as you go through this? I am not going to fall under this. I am going to rise to it. If that's your intention, then you're on your way to coming out the other side, definitely being stronger as a result of it. Does that make sense?
How about anybody else? One more share about how you cope or how you deal with situations like this that's helpful to you. Yeah, Carolyn?
I just think you have to take it day by day. I can't, you just take that one step and then you take another step and you just do one day at a time, because, I'm without an income. So I can't think what's going to happen in May or June. I just have to focus on Saturday, what needs to be done today, and that's kind of how it's just, although my thing is, if I stay home much longer, I may not ever want to go back out there again. I'm like, I'm on my four walls. I don't
and Carolyn, you're highlighting our, we've been working on an acronym here the last couple of weeks, and so you're highlighting on the P of PAL, which was be present, and be present now. That's all that exists is right now. And Paula was talking about that as well. That is when you find your mind going into the future, just notice that you're doing that and bring yourself into this present moment. What do I have to be grateful for right now? And so that's definitely a keep your cool move for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, maybe we could move on to finishing up that acronym now. Those of you who have been with us the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about joy. Really, how do we maintain joy in our lives? And some of you may wonder, why are you talking about joy? For heaven's sakes, I'm just trying to survive here. And you're trying to talk about maintaining joy. I'm not sure that I'm in that place. But the reason that we are talking about that is because joy is inconsistent with anxiety or with worry or with anger. That is, they're mutually exclusive. So if we know how to maintain joy, then our anxiety will fall to the side. And our worry will fall to the side. And a lot of things that make us upset will fall to the side if we know how to stay grounded in joy.
Yeah, and when we're talking about joy, we're also talking about peace. If you consider there's two sides of the same coin. And so, we're not talking about joy like, dancing in the tulips all the time. It can be peace, in an acceptance in this moment, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and I'd also like to mention our distinction between joy and happiness, because a lot of people think they're the same thing, and we don't. And we distinguish them then this way: that happiness is when you get what you want. Oh, I wanted something for my birthday, or I've been waiting to, I want this house, I want this mate, I want this child, I want this. Go to this movie or whatever. When we get what we want, we tend to be happy. That's different than joy. Joy is not dependent on us getting what we want. Joy is dependent on remembering the truth. Remembering the truth about who I am. I am a special creation of God whose value is priceless, and that can never be taken away from me. That's one way to stay grounded in joy, because it's not dependent on what happens to me. Kate, do you have anything to add to that concept?
Yeah, for me personally, I see myself as a spiritual being having a human experience, rather than a human being. So I really lean towards the spiritual, and the more I develop that within myself, the more invulnerable I feel. That, well, it's easier for me to trust. It's easier for me to accept. It's easier for me not to be in fear when that's where my mind is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, cool. So that's kind of why we're talking about joy here. And those of you who've been with us know that we have been using this acronym then, PAL, to talk about how to stay in joy. And P refers to the presence that we've mentioned several times. When I stay in the present moment, that's where I find joy. I can't find it anywhere else. It's got to be right now, because that's the only place that I am. And then last week we talked about acceptance. That is, how do I accept what's going on? The more I resist what's going on, the worse I feel. So how can I come to an acceptance of what's happening around me? And we also talked a bit about how that's not instantaneous, that sometimes that's a journey of coming to acceptance. So we might have to go through a whole range of other feelings first to get to acceptance. But it's when we can get to acceptance, we have the ability to move on and continue moving our life forward. So that's kind of a goal that we have.
Yeah, and the acceptance, just a side note, is the opposite of resistance. And because when something bad is happening in our lives, we'll often want to resist it and push it away and say, no, that's not fair. That's not right. I don't deserve it. And I worked hard. And, that's all resistance. And acceptance brings you immediately to peace.
Yeah. It's not necessarily an easy road. We're not suggesting that it's easy. We're just suggesting that it's very, very helpful and maybe even necessary.
Yeah, it's a muscle worth developing, for sure, to practice. Right. Yeah.
So that's the P and the A. Kate, tell us about the L.
Okay. Well, you could probably guess that the L is for love. And, it's when we are in a state of love, and we're not talking about conditional love, that, oh, I just love it when everything's going well, that kind of thing. True love is unconditional. That no matter what is going on, that state of knowing that you are loved and you have the power to love. And when we remember that, and when we practice love, we cannot help but feel good. I mean, talk about keeping your cool. When we're in a state of love, we're cool. I cannot, I'm not going to get knocked off balance here.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think of, Kate, that I know that you speak about a lot is the concept of self-love, that we shouldn't leave ourselves out of that.
Right.
And often we think, well, it's selfish to love ourselves, but we don't believe that that's true. We believe that it's incredibly unselfish to love ourselves, because really when we're getting what we need, it makes us stronger to help other people.
Yeah.
And we can't really help a lot of people if we're tired, if we're hungry, if we're in pain, if we're struggling ourselves. So part of loving others cannot be separated from loving ourselves, that we really need to take care of ourselves in order to be strong to love other people. So it's not just loving others, but loving ourselves also.
Yeah. So notice those three words: PAL, presence, acceptance, and love. Just feel that. When you can really step into that and allow it to fill you, and just feel it. Now, our outside world, the experiences that are going on in our outside world, they do not change. Yet when we're in that place, and we do that ourselves just by how we're thinking, whether, if you pray or you meditate or you go for a walk in the sunshine, or whatever it is you're doing to help yourself stay in that space, then you are filling yourself up with love. Then you are, whatever it is that's happening, you're going to be able to deal with it better. You will be in a healthier state of mind to make decisions as you move on from here.
Yeah. So there's like three components we want you to hear today. One is to know that you are loved, first of all, right? When you know you are loved
and lovable,
and lovable, you're able to relax and deal with things more effectively. And that loving others is a practice of feeling better too, of maintaining joy, that as we give, it feels good to give. And that loving ourselves is a crucial component of that. Otherwise, our ability to give to others is diminished as well. And so when we include that space of love with the acceptance and the presence, it's likely that we will stay more solidly in that land of joy that we're talking about here, even in the midst of things going wrong around us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Nothing outside of you can steal your joy. It is within you.
If we realize that, right?
That's right. Like when we know that, and we feel, and we really do our homework in our own minds and focusing and making that a really solid place for us. Whatever happens outside, we're gonna stay more stable with greater ease.
Cool. So Kate, can you give us an example of how you stay grounded in love when things are tough?
Okay.
Things are tough. What do you like? Right now, it's tough for a lot of us. So, how do you stay grounded in love when you're challenged?
Okay. Well, the first thing that's coming to my mind, and I talked about this a little bit last week too, is I think my really strongest muscle is in acceptance. That whatever happens, I accept it. It can be a little thing, like my flight gets canceled, like, okay, so who can I meet? I'll just find, I just accept it and I move on. And that's something I've practiced so much that when something happens, I go to acceptance. When I got my cancer diagnosis, I accepted it. I didn't fight it. I just moved on with my treatment. That keeps me in this what we call the land of love. Even that keeps me there. And it's something I think I've done all my life, even before I started doing, studying this stuff. But how about you, David? What's yours?
Well, one of the things that I do that works, helps me out a lot, is the concept of forgiveness. And that relates to acceptance that you're talking about. I can't change what's happened to me. I can't make somebody like me. I can't make somebody not yell at me. I can't make somebody accept me. and people may hurt me in various ways. But if I'm going to have joy in life, I can't hang on to that crap. I just can't hang on to it because it will take away my joy. So the ability to learn to forgive is very freeing for me. Because when I can forgive and let go, like even forgiving the illness, the pandemic, right? We're all faced with the choice here. Are we going to blame the pandemic? Are we going to resent it? Are we going to be angry at it? We can be all of those things if we want for a short time, but if we hang on to that, we're going to be giving away our joy. So I not only want to learn to forgive people, I want to learn to forgive things that happened to me, like the pandemic, or like a car accident, or like a pet dying, or whatever. I've got to practice forgiveness constantly and letting go of my attachment to those things going the way I want them to go. Otherwise, I shield myself. It's like I put a barrier up between me and joy.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I do.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, you know, one of my favorite sayings is, "I'm not going to give my joy away," and I didn't give my joy away to cancer. I didn't give my joy away to the coronavirus. Didn't give my joy away when all of the work that David and I had on our schedule here was taken away. You know, and that's where the acceptance comes in. You know, so that the joy can be maintained.
So let's hear from some of you now, because we don't want to do all the talking here about this. These concepts of PAL, presence, acceptance, love. How is it that you relate to that concept, and what makes sense to you about how it helps you stay joyful? Thoughts, comments about that?
I just have a quick comment. I personally think Kate must be a superhero because I do not match up to her positivity or, you know, looking on the bright side, and so I need to learn to exercise those muscles, and so that's part of the reason I'm here. But
Thank you for saying that.
I feel a little bit inadequate, you know, hearing Kate talk like, what? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not the intention. I hope you know that.
No, I'm not saying that you should feel bad about that.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm just saying I'm so impressed. I don't know where to begin.
Okay. Well, if you are inspired, that's great. And you know, something that we want for everybody that we work with is we believe there's no one has more of a right to be joyful in their lives than anybody else. And we are all on our own individual paths, having our own experiences of life. And I think for me, just like some people are given the gift of music, Diane, that, you know, and how that they share that gift and bless other people. We all have different gifts. And I am, you know, I do believe that a gift that I have is joy. And that even in challenge, that joy can rise to the top. And I think I have that gift so I can share it with others and teach others how they can strengthen that muscle in themselves.
Well, I also want to add to that, Kate, because I know that I've known you a long time now, over 15 years, and I know that it's not all just a gift. Part of it's a gift, but part of it is you have worked on it. That is, you've made choices. You've made choices to look at the positive. You've made choices to stop negative thinking. You've made choices to ask yourself, what's good about this? And as the word you used, Diane, was exercise. I have to exercise that. And I think that's true for most of us. We have to exercise that pattern of looking on the bright side, of thinking positive, if we're going to maintain it over time. And that's so the idea of exercising that muscle is a really important one, Diane.
Yeah, and if you want the biggest tip I give to anybody I have ever coached is first step is self-love. You know, is to see that you're deserving of joy. You know, that you are absolutely lovable and deserving. And because I think, you know, different people that I've talked to, I think, and it was in part for me, I had to get over that for myself, to allow myself to feel loved so that I could rise. I think we can really keep ourselves down by our own self judgments and well, you're not good enough, or you failed at that, as if and it's something we've done means it's who we are, and it's not. So,
Were you always so positive? Because your mom was pretty amazing anyway, and I can't imagine that some of her amazingness has not passed down.
yes, I am very grateful to have been the daughter of my mother, and yeah, she was just a ton of fun, and really had a great attitude about life. So my being exposed to her my whole life certainly influenced me, for sure. And I will also say that I had a big part of my life where I was very insecure, very, very insecure, and didn't think I had much to give at all. And so that was also there at the same time. So, and because I went to the gym of self-love a lot, I got stronger. So.
That's a good point, Carolyn, pointing to Kate's mother, because she grew up in a family that was kind of a happy family. And she had a mother that was joy-filled. And not all of us had that. And so if we didn't have that, it means it's a longer trail for the rest of us to get there. And yet it's a worthy hike.
Yeah.
To march towards this self-love and this acceptance and this joy that is a muscle we practice.
Uh-huh.
So you had a head start, Kate. That's a
yeah, I did, for sure. Yeah. Yes.
So here's what I'm wondering. I see we're out of time. So how are you different, if at all, now compared to an hour ago? You identified a state of mind.
A word.
Came on the call. Has that shifted at all for you? How are you feeling now after spending time with this group? Where are you in this moment? Anyone?
A word.
I felt sensitive at the beginning, and I feel inspired now. I feel higher, naturally higher.
Okay.
I'm writing all of this stuff down on my little cards here that I'm going to post around, and I feel inspired. I do. I feel grounded. I feel
Great.
much more, not on the verge of tears.
Okay. Excellent.
Feels
Excellent.
nice.
Isn't that nice? And
nice.
And notice, Angela, it's been about an hour.
Yeah.
And you might have felt that way even earlier in the hour. So we don't need to wait 3 months to feel good again.
Right.
That
can happen faster.
It can. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? A word or two?
Or positive.
More positive?
Mm-hmm. Good. Excellent. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, Gordy, I can see you thinking.
I'm thinking, well, you gave me something that I had thought of before, which is that batting 1,000 in all the struggles that have happened in my life, I've come through them. And I find myself, I teach, and so I've got a whole bunch of high school seniors that are feeling robbed, that are feeling cheated,
Sure.
and trying to find a way to give them something about don't let this become your defining moment. Learn from this and grow from this. And so you gave me something that hopefully they can latch onto and be hopeful with.
Yeah.
I'm not as frustrated as I was.
Okay, good. Thank you. Your students are fortunate to have you.
Cool. One more share from anybody that would like to?
A word?
I'm just feeling content. in the present
Oh,
right now.
In the present.
So, yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate that reminder. I don't think our culture is always about the
no,
present. It's about what's next. It's about
that's right.
preparing
Yeah.
for what's coming. So,
Yeah.
yeah, right now I just get to snuggle with my baby.
I know. We
To
could
be here with all of you.
We can
No
see you.
kidding.
Nice.
Yeah, what a beautiful picture. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for bringing her.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, she's a regular.
Well, very good. We'll end here then now for today. We're gonna meet again next Saturday, same time.
Yes, and the topic for next week is control. You have more than you think. Like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you going to record that?
Yes, we will record it.
Was last week's recorded?
Yes, it was.
Awesome. Okay.
You'd like the link? Yeah, and by the way, if anybody wants the link from today's recording, is just email me at kate@triumphleadership.com, and I will make sure you get it. And, or if there's someone, that you may know somebody that wanted to be here and didn't take it, you can pass it on. So, okay, is that a wrap, partner?
It's a wrap, I think. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy Easter
Bye.
to everybody.
Easter, yes.
Mm.
Happy
Rise
Easter. Celebrate.
Easter.
Yes, yes. All right, bye all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.